Welcome to episode 6 of the STB podcast. This week I am joined by former Heisman Trophy winner and All-American National Championship winning quarterback, 12-year NBA veteran, Charlie Ward. In this week's episode, Charlie and I discuss his upbringing, learning to balance playing football and basketball, his time at Florida State as a true sport athlete, how he manages and handles money throughout his career, and his love of coaching that stays with him to this day. It's an episode you're not going to want to miss. Secure the Bag content is intended for collegiate athletes. Secure the Bag does not provide financial services, financial planning, investment, tax, legal, or sports agent advice or services. Welcome, Charlie Ward. Thanks for being with me today, Charlie. I really appreciate it, man. Great to have you on.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, Charlie, I know you, I'd say fairly well. I've gotten to know you over the last few years, and I know you were passionate around the topic of, empowering young athletes and creating good habits and just helping out where you can. So I thought you'd be perfect to have on to kind of talk about your experience and at Florida State and just growing up and just talk a little bit about money. So I guess for people that don't know you, I guess my first question would be kind of tell me a little bit about your background, where you're from, and then just, I guess, to relate this to finance, what was your idea of money growing up? Did you feel financially literate? What were your experiences with money kind of pre going to college, just growing up in your household as a youngster?
Well, I'm from Thomasville, Georgia, and so most of my experiences when it came to finances was based around, what my parents did. They taught us how to balance a checkbook, and make sure you pay your bills on time, because we went to the bill collector where they had to pay their bills, and so sometimes we were the mail carriers taking the bills to get them paid. And so that's kind of how we grew up understanding, finances in a lot of ways. And, I was one of those that didn't spend a lot of money on items. So if I ever had a job where, I did cut grass and those types of things to get a few dollars here and there, it was to purchase something. And that's more so like high school, where you get a job to be able to pay for whatever it is that you're trying to get, whether it's some clothes, some shoes, whatever it is that your parents say you need to be able to, hold your end of the bargain, as they would pay for some and then you had to pay for some, whatever it is that you wanted. And so that's kind of, my gist of understanding of money. But, when I did get my first job in high school-ish.
What was your first job?
Well, of course, like I said, I cut grass, for money. So I did that part. But my first real big job was cleaning out a warehouse for a company that was coming to town. And so I helped clean the warehouse out. And that afforded me an opportunity to get a paycheck. And so I was a big saver. I saved money. I wasn't a big spender. And so it I don't know if that's good or bad in some way, but it was very helpful for me because I had money whenever I needed it.
Well, and tell me, I guess, obviously, famously, you are one of the highest level 2 sport athletes we've had. Tell me a little bit about just growing up. When did you start playing football, basketball? What else did you play? And kind of how did that love and talent evolve?
Well, I was blessed to have, a certain level of talent. I had great hand-eye coordination, which normally goes well with being a good athlete. And that started at an early age. My parents recognized that at an early age. And so I was that guy who was always dribbling the basketball, whether it was in the house, outside, wherever it was, I was dribbling the basketball.
What schools were you looking at? Obviously, you ended up going to Florida State, but what was that? How many schools were you looking at seriously, and kind of what ultimately led you to choose Florida State?
It really came down to two schools, University of Georgia and Florida State. I mean, there were a lot of schools who were interested, sent letters, as I mentioned, and Auburn at the last couple of weeks of recruiting, start recruiting me. Georgia Tech, my friend Sean Jones ended up going to Georgia Tech. He chose Georgia Tech. So it came down to Georgia and Florida State. And I ended up choosing Florida State because Coach Bowden had allowed Brad Johnson to play football and basketball. And those are the two sports that I wanted to play. And Coach had history on his side. So that's how I kind of chose Florida State. And it was closer to home as well. And had a former teammate from my high school who was at Florida State. So he kind of helped in the process as well. And I was just grateful that they wanted me to be a part.
So you get to Florida State. Tell me kind of just about that first couple years, kind of living on your own, being away from home, kind of learning to be an adult, and how you handled that both, in the football field and just with money, right? Because the stipends aren't now, they're a lot better than they were back then, right? And so tell me about a little bit of how you navigated just the change overall from both a football perspective and then also just financially with money.
But once I got to FSU, I mean, everything that I needed, they had. So financially, didn't have to do much. But as you mentioned, the stipend checks, I enjoyed going to the bowl games. That was very, very good time because, they give you the stipend money, the travel, even though I didn't travel very far from Thomasville, but the travel to the bowl games, which was Phoenix. And then while you were there, everything you needed, they provided for you, which was food, and everything. So you didn't have to spend your money unless you wanted to spend your money, which I didn't. So pretty much all the money that they gave me from a stipend standpoint, I saved and brought back to Tallahassee with me. So I was as I mentioned, I was a big saver. And if someone was going to provide something that I needed and I didn't have to spend my own money, then I was going to do it.
I feel you. I hear that. From a football perspective at Florida State, right? When you first got the opportunity, you had kind of a rocky start, right? And we all know you end up winning the Heisman Trophy. What was your mindset when you started and you had a kind of a rough start to your football playing career? And how do you feel like you overcome that to ultimately become the player that you became?
Well, first, I guess it starts with the work part that you put in. And, before I started, I had very little experience playing, like actually getting out there and live bullets against someone else. But I had the opportunity to play against some really good defense in practice. And so it was always there. It was just a matter of gaining that experience when people were in the stands and finding a way to navigate your way through. And yes, I had some tough times, meaning, I threw a lot of interceptions, put our team in poor situations, especially a defense. But they always bail me out. We had a very solid defense my 2 years that I played. Very grateful for them. We wouldn't have a championship if it wasn't for them, and we wouldn't have been in all of our games if it wasn't for them. Because I know my junior year, I put them in some tough situations with interceptions and poor decisions. But I was grateful for our coaches giving me second and third opportunities. Sometimes that's what we need. But they trusted me because of the work that I put in early in my career. They knew the potential I had. And so they continue to give me opportunities to go out and improve myself. And as I mentioned, even in some of those tough games, I was able to overcome in the end, and we won some of those games that I had poor starts in. And when you talk about trying to be successful, all you can fall back on is your work and having the confidence to know that you can do it and go out and make plays. And so I was a part of a few game-winning drives at the end of, a tough start.
So let's talk about, I guess, going into that, your senior year, the national championship year. Obviously, there's a huge jump. Did you have a feeling going into that season that was different? I'm sure you guys expected to win, but did you have a feeling, or was there something different you felt going into that season, just about not only about yourself, but maybe your teammates as well?
Well, every year we were expected to win a national championship. That was always the goal. And there were some years where we lost only one game, like the year before, but it was to the Miami, who actually ended up playing for the national championship against Alabama. And so we weren't afforded an opportunity. But this year we had most of our guys coming back. And then, of course, we had some freshmen step up and play a major role in our success, like Ward Dunn being one from an offensive standpoint due to injury. But our team, we expected to go out and compete at a high level and hopefully give ourselves a chance to win a national championship. And we were rolling along for the most part until we played Notre Dame, which was a tough game on the road. And we ended up losing by 7 points.
Yeah, so I was in seventh grade, and I think I told you I was a massive fan of yours. When you talk about playing catch in the backyard, I would go back there and I'd be Charlie Ward to Kes McCorvey by myself in my backyard every Saturday. And I remember that game, I had it circled. I grew up in Philadelphia, so there's a lot of Notre Dame kind of Irish. I went to a Catholic school, so there was a lot of Irish Catholic fans there, and I was so pumped up for that game, and I was crushed. It was an incredible game. But when that game was taking place, when that's going on, were you in the midst of thinking, man, do you realize you're in such a special moment while you're playing that game, or is it something you reflect on after?
Well, all those things you reflect on after, but when you're in the game, you're just playing the game. You understand you just got to go out and execute, make plays to help your team be successful. And you understand situations and all those types of things. We learned from the Notre Dame game, that example gave us the lesson to be able to, fight through and step up when we need to step up. And actually, that was who I was trying to throw the football to at Notre Dame, was Ward in the end zone. So that didn't work that time, but this time it did. And then once we got to the championship game against Nebraska, very similar situation. Offensively, we were sputtering. We were moving football. We weren't able to capitalize in the red zone. but our defense kept us in the game, and we were able to score one touchdown through it all and ended up winning the football game 18-16. But the last drive to kick the field goal was another situation, 1 minute, 16 seconds, and we had to drive about 75 yards or so to get us in touchdown, get us in field goal range. And of course, they aided us with a couple of penalties. And so that of course, free yards is always good yards. And so we were able to navigate our way through and get the field goal. So all those experiences where we had the blowouts, the Notre Dame drives, the Florida drive, helped us in the championship game, because our mentality was always we were explosive.
Mm-hmm.
And so at any time, regardless of how we were looking, at any time we could make plays, and that's what we did.
So you have this incredible run at Florida State, right? You guys win the national title, you win the Heisman Trophy. I guess for me, what was the winning the Heisman like? What was joining that fraternity like? And then also with the success that you had, what led you to say, hey, I'm just going to pursue basketball at the next level? Because I would imagine it's hard to walk away from football when you had achieved so much at such a high level.
Well, winning the Heisman was definitely something that I think every kid dreams of doing. And for me to be able to be in that room at that time was amazing, because I got a chance to see a lot of my childhood heroes. You talk about Tony Dorsett being one who you have up there, O.J. Simpson being another. Those guys were, heroes of mine when I was growing up. And to be able to see them in the same room was something that you don't normally get every day. But once your name's called, they said your name would change, or it would change your life. And it did, from the sense of then now you're global, winning a Heisman. But it doesn't change who you are. It may change what people think of you, but it doesn't change who you are. But it was a great feeling, an opportunity for me to be able to experience that with my family. They got an opportunity to go to New York, and we got that chance to spend time together. And, that's something that, of course, later on, we did more of, because I was in New York, playing.
Mm-hmm.
But, when it came down to the decision for NFL or NBA, I always tell people it was a job opportunity. The NFL decided that I wasn't worth a first-round draft pick or even drafting at all. So they chose not to draft me, which was part of my prayer, which was for God to open and close the door so that I wouldn't have to choose. And he made that happen. But once the NFL draft came and went, and I didn't get drafted, then I put all my eggs in the NBA basket to make sure I gave myself an opportunity to have a good showing. And I went on a Nike trip. I got an opportunity to play in the NABC All-Star game, which I had some success in. And my whole journey, pre-draft journey, I had some success. Being a football guy, mainly, and that's what everyone saw me as, and competing equally with guys who had played basketball their entire time. That's where gave me the opportunity to be able to say that I'm worthy of a first-round draft pick. And so, of course, in this day and age, they're drafting on the upside with all the young players and in hopes that they turn into what they think they should be. That's the way they drafted me as well, on the upside, that if I can compete at a high level in football, as well as basketball at the same time, and if I spent more time playing and preparing, that I would have, a successful career. And that is kind of how, I was able to navigate my way through. Of course, you have people who advocate for you, to help you get to wherever you need to get to, which I was grateful for. And your work.
If the NFL had drafted you, you think you would have chosen football?
If in the first round.
If they had made you a first round pick?
Correct. I would have chosen football. But in the other round, I told them that I would consider my other options, because if I got drafted in the first round of basketball, like I ended up doing, then I was going to go there because that's the better option.
I got you. That makes a lot of sense. So we've talked a little bit about NIL and this type of thing before, and I can't help but think about your time at Florida State and how being a two-sport athlete, being someone who at high profile at Florida State, you would have been an incredible, you would have had a lot of NIL opportunities. What are your overall kind of thoughts on the NIL and how it's been rolled out and how it's impacting college athletics now?
Yes, I at the beginning when they were talking about it, I was just trying to figure out. I think it was a good idea, great idea for those that are on college campuses, student athletes who are on college campuses, for them to be able to monetize off their name, image, and likeness, because it was going to be different ways of making it happen. But having a paid internship is something that you couldn't do as a student athlete. But having an NIL opportunity, when that door opened, now you can be a paid intern, regardless of how long it is. But you can be a paid intern, and you can also do other deals, business deals, which that was not happening during my time. But a lot of things that we did on campus, whether they use your name, your pictures, and all those types of things, that was just part of you being on scholarship and you being a representative of the institution. And you got what you needed, as far as all the things on campus, in the community, the PSAs, all those things prepared us for where we were wanting to go, and name recognition, and it also helped other institutions. So other institutions. So we weren't getting paid, but we were helping other businesses and organizations. I know I've done epilepsy. I've done in college, Habitat for Humanity. We did a lot of speaking engagements for FCA and other entities. And so even though we couldn't get paid, we were help supporting those causes. And, in this day and age, they can get paid for their speaking engagements, for their appearances, which I'm so happy for, because not everyone is using it just for themselves. They're sending money home, sending money back home to their families. Some are starting, foundations. They're supporting other causes with the resources that they're bringing in. They have a lot of weapons for them to be able to use their name, image, and likeness with now, as opposed to what we had during my time. You know, it was very grassroots in the sense of mainly local interests, and we didn't have what we have today, where I can push a button and a million people can see it.
Yeah, yeah. I think one of the things that I've been most impressed with it is the kids using their platforms to do such unselfish things. Especially when younger people often get accused of just being selfish and self-centered. I think it's been awesome to see guys taking up causes left and right, donating money just in a myriad of ways, and also taking care of themselves and their families. So overall, I think it's been an awesome thing. And there are obviously some kinks to work out, but obviously long overdue, and I'm happy that they have it. You go professionally, right? You decide to play basketball. Now you are making a lot of money, right? You're going from college, being on a small stipend and just having your needs met, to being able to do a lot more things. So tell me, if you remember what your first contract was, and what was like your first big purchase and mindset when you got drafted and went to the Knicks?
Well, I was still mindful. I know we purchased a house for my parents. We bought some land and ended up purchasing a house for them. I know that was one big expense. All of the cars that I received, I used purchase from a car deal that I did in college.
Mm-hmm.
Most of it I saved because I lived in an apartment and the rent was high. To me, it was high, but in that time, it was what it was. It was like $1,900 for like two bedrooms or something.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that was high. And then living in New York, of course, is different. But the checks had more zeros, but it afforded us the opportunity to be able to help, more people. I did a golf tournament for the March of Dimes. So we helped raise funds for the March of Dimes. And I was able to, support more people back home, like did trust funds for all of our siblings, and our parents as well. So we gave them a certain amount of money, put in a trust fund for them and their kids, and gave them, rules for how they could use it. And once it was gone, that was it, And so we, my wife and I, Tanja and I, at my rookie year, we were dating, but then after going to second year, we got married. And so we put all these things in place to be able to help support our family best we could at the time, and to make sure they, had what they needed. But our parents raised us, well. So there was no fighting, all gratitude towards, the opportunities that God had afforded us from a financial standpoint.
Awesome. So yeah, your story is, in terms of, you seem like from day one, like we've talked about, you had a mindset to save and set up a lot of the things that you set up, and the way we've had a conversation about that before, about the importance of putting money to the side and saying, this is what I'm going to give. What were some things that did you ever offer advice to your teammates, or what were some of the mistakes that you saw your teammates make that I'm sure young athletes make today that you saw kind of in the locker room with large sums of money?
Well, I didn't gamble, so that was part of some of the guys' problem. They gambled a lot, and so that's income. But some of them, we had that. You had whatever it was, but even still, I felt like there was better use of those resources. So I didn't do that. One of the things I did do that I didn't do afterwards was purchase, the jewelry, like you see the diamonds and what have you. I had one purchase that was relatively large in my eyes. It was like $2,500 for a necklace that had diamonds with the numbers and all of that. And we were at the Ritz-Carlton in Cleveland. And I left to go grab something to eat. And I came back and I couldn't find my chain. And so after that time, I did not put any more money in. I did not spend a whole lot of money on jewelry anymore. And so, that was probably the extent of, just throwing away a lot of money on those types of things. And next thing, I was looking to work deals. You're in the NBA. People want to use your name, image, and likeness to support their product. And we just worked to find the best situations, and whether it was clothes or whatever it may be. But the thing that we all had was financial literacy education. So they would come around once a year and do these financial workshops with us after practice. And of course, you had your own financial team, but you just hear all the stories of guys losing money and what they lose them on, and purchases and all the different things. And so you just want to make sure that you're not in that boat. And, the crazy part about it was my rookie year on the road, Monty Williams and I were roommates. I mean, everyone else, they had their own rooms and what have you. But we were trying to save money. So we decided we were going to room together on the road, kind of split that cost. And, it formed a great friendship while we were in accountability, while we were saving money as well. So, that's kind of what we did as rookies. That didn't normally happen. But it was something that we felt like we needed to do in order to save a few pennies here and there to make it happen.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you have, a ton of success with the Knicks. As you look back, you were on some really good teams, some teams that came close to winning a championship. Tell me about that experience, and if you've got, one or two memories that really stick out about your time in New York playing with the Knicks. And I was a big MJ Bulls fan, so it was weird seeing you play on the Knicks and rooting against you when the Bulls and Knicks would play, but it was something that had to be done. But yeah, tell me about some of those teams and some of those great experiences that you had.
Well, like you mentioned, I was on a few great teams there with the Knicks, and we were very competitive. I had a few coaches. Pat Riley's my coach as a rookie. And then I had Coach Don Nelson for half a year. Coach Jeff Van Gundy was there for about 4 or 5 years with me. So I had and Don Chaney, was there was the coach when I left. And so I had some really good coaches while I was there. And, the experiences were amazing because you were playing in New York City at the Garden, and the fans were for you when things were going really, really well. And then there were some who were against you when things weren't going well. I mean, there were times where we were getting cheered for winning, and then there were some games where we got blown out and you got booed. I mean, it was par for the course, just what it is. But I just remember, being able to, play in the Miami Heat series. Those are always fun. We're going to be competitive, but they were always fun. And I enjoyed, the competition, competing against those guys. So those series are always serious. But the run to our finals was one that I can remember. Being able to beat the Miami Heat in 5 on a Allen Houston runner.
Houston, yep.
In Game 5, we were 8th seed that year. And so being an 8th seed and making it to the finals was something that I think was a very memorable experience because no one really gave us a chance or thought of us making it to the finals. But we caught our stride with some of the new guys. It was a shortened season. And so some of the new guys were still trying to get acclimated to Coach Van Gundy's system. And we were trying to get acclimated as a group. And our last 5 or 6 games, we had to win to get into the playoffs. And that is what you see today. A lot of times, the teams that make it to the World Series or the NBA Finals or whatever, the Super Bowl, sometimes they come out of the wild card because they get hot. They win a game. The next thing, win another game. And the next thing, you win another game. Then they're, playing for it all. And so that was us. We were HC. We got hot at the end to get in. Then we ended up winning Game 5 in Miami. And then we ended up beating either Charlotte or Atlanta that year, swept them, I think. And then we played Indiana. Ended up winning in Game 6 in the Garden to go to the finals. And so we didn't win it, but that experience was something that I'll always remember. Just giving yourself an opportunity to win the championship was special for us, but it wasn't meant for us.
Yeah. Awesome. A lot of personalities on that team. I was, Sprewell and Larry Johnson on that team as well.
But a lot of personalities, a lot of different guys, but great teammates. I mean, that was one thing and that's every team. Every team has their groups, their cliques, and whatever you want to call them. But when you get on the floor, everyone's a great teammate. They understand their jobs. And so I think that's very, very important when you start looking at, those different personalities. Yes, we all had different personalities, but we all came together once we hit the court.
Awesome. So a couple things as I wrap up. You now, right, tell people a little bit about what you do now. I know you coach. You've been a coach for a long time. Did you know you wanted to coach? Or was there a coach that you've had along the way, or a few coaches that kind of inspired you to kind of take that path?
Well, I had great coaches coming along for sure. And I grew up in a house with a coach. So my dad was a coach. And I was around it a lot. And so I wanted to be like him, but I didn't know, not coaching in a sense. At that time, I just wanted to play. I didn't want to be a coach. I wanted to play. And I did. But when the opportunity came for me to have to make a decision, or when it came for me to have to make a decision on my next steps, my transition from the NBA. Coach Van Gundy gave me an opportunity and to see if coaching was something I really wanted to do. And I was grateful. Been grateful for Coach Van Gundy, Jeff Van Gundy, for all my NBA career, because he was the one that kind of took me under his wing as a rookie and helped me with my skill development. He's my skill development coach. Then once he became the head coach, he gave me an opportunity to be in rotation. And so, once I got to a point and he brought me to Houston, we ended up, I ended up retiring there, and he gave me my first coaching opportunity. So I coached in the NBA for 2 years. I started to enjoy it, but I didn't like the schedule anymore because it was a lot of time away from the family, and I wanted to have a more flexible schedule to where I could have more time with the family. And so I ended up getting into high school coaching, started a Christian school, coached football and basketball the first year, and then the football team needed a head football coach. And so they gave me an opportunity to do that. And that was tough. Those were some tough years, but years that I learned a lot. They gave me an opportunity to make mistakes, but more importantly, they gave me an opportunity to make an impact on young men, which was something I appreciated. And we didn't have the success in football at that school, Westbury Christian, but we were able to make some inroads in a lot of different ways to make impacts on young people and the community as well, and the school. Then I moved on to Booker T. Washington for 4 years in Pensacola, Florida. And football-wise, didn't have a winning season there, but we were respectable at the end. We weren't respectable at the beginning, but we became respectable in the end, and we were able to, make an impact there as well. And then God opened the door for me to be a basketball coach. So I got back into what I was doing for 13 years before I took the 9-year hiatus to football. And I've enjoyed coaching here at Florida High. I've been here at Florida High. This is my 5th season, going to my 5th season now. And we've had some great memories. We actually ended up got a chance to win a state championship last year. And so the expectations has always been that, but it's even higher now for the kids. But more importantly, just going through the processes and the journey of getting prepared for a season, the experiences that we have during the season, and it's not all basketball. This year I brought back the life skills training. So we've had numerous speakers come through. We did a financial literacy piece. We did 2 pieces, two engagements with them. One was talking about budgeting, and one was talking about credit. And credit. So it was helping them through that whole process. Actually had Troy Benson stop through to talk about, just the importance of relationships. That's something that I'm big on, for them to understand that, you never know who your friends are going to be one day. And, relationships are important. And so you just have to make sure that you're treating people with respect and have a genuine interest in what they're doing, because you never know where they may end up. Mm-hmm. And so for him to come by, then we had the provost, in the provost's office at Florida State, Jay Terry, came through and talked to him about what, being a All-American student, what that looks like. And next, we're going to have the lieutenant at Florida State, the PD office, come and talk to him about social media, sexual harassment, and those things. That's coming up here next week. So, our main goal and focus is for our kids to have a great experience, learn lifelong lessons while we're playing. And of course, win basketball games, because that gives everyone a great feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But, winning in life is something that we all have to do as well. And these experiences are something that they'll learn and take from. And one day when they're coaching, or when they're a father, or they're running their business, they can look back at these experiences and say, I remember when.
Awesome. That's great, Charlie. My last question I got to ask you, we're in the middle of football season. I know you keep up with your Noles. What do you think about kind of the program and what Coach Norvell's building and the season this far?
Well, we've seen this coming as far as what Coach Norvell and the staff is doing. The one big thing about it is he's been consistent from his first year to where he is now. And he's worked to try to keep the staff stable. He's had maybe one major spot taken, or one guy leave, but he was able to get the guy that he wanted to replace him with, Coach Shannon, in that spot. I mean, he's had a couple coordinators as well, but he's been able to hire within. So he's kept the stability in the staff and what you want. And then he's built the roster. Rebuilt the roster. He's kind of come in and brought guys in that he felt would have the mindset that he know will win, long term. And, he's brought in some great transfers. And this year he brought in a lot of great freshmen that is getting an opportunity to learn, just like we did. Some are playing, but most of them are getting great experiences in practice, being on the scout team. Some get an opportunity to play in the games. But all those experiences will definitely help you long term. And you can see them building towards, the success that we've all been waiting for and wanting them to have, because they have veterans. They're not playing with, all freshmen or sophomores, but they do have some veterans that are playing a lot more, and the young guys get a chance to kind of be spot players. And also they have guys who are good leaders. That plays a big part in the success as well, because you want your veterans to be great leaders, role models, whether it's going to class, whether it's the work ethic, whether it's the attitude towards the work, whether it's coaching them up, because they've been in the system long enough to where they can coach their teammates up. And that's what you're starting to see a lot more of now, with guys who've been around, that stuck around. They're starting to coach up the young guys. And that's what you want in your program. And that's what he envisioned. And he's starting to see that now. And only, time would tell as far as how far they go. Hopefully we can finish this year off with winning the rest of our games. I think we have, 4 more games left. And hopefully we can finish this season off winning all the rest of the games. And, if we win 9 games in the regular season and then have a chance to win 10 games in a bowl, I mean, that would go a long ways. And, I'm not in this whole theory of schools being back and all of that. Let us just enjoy where we are and, continue to improve and move forward from where we are.
Well said. And I think that's a perfect way to end, because I think one of the things that has struck me throughout this conversation and just in knowing you is you really, truly are someone who lives in the moment and is all in wherever they are in life, right? Whether when you're playing basketball, where you're playing football, I think that's how you've been able to be so successful. Is I think a lot of people want to be like that, and it's a very difficult thing to do, but you seem to be very much live where your feet are. And if you can do that in life, you're going to be very successful. So I appreciate you coming on, Charlie, and spending so much time with me. And we will talk soon, man. I really appreciate the time.
I appreciate you having me on.
All right.